Alright, this is Video Game Growing Pains, and we're doing the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. These games came out way after Final Fantasy VII's release, and they only came out due to the insane popularity of the game. I'm going to try and cover them all, so let's be quick. Starting off with the smartphone games in Japan. We had G-Bike and we had the snowboarding game. They are almost exact clones of the mini games in Final Fantasy VII. You can skip them. They are not something to be sad over. Before Crisis was an interesting little smartphone RPG, which I'm a little sad we didn't get in the States. It followed the secret organization of the Turks, the secret police of Shinra, who were, well, secret agents. It gave us some unique world-building elements and showed us the backstory of several characters we were quite taken with in the original. I would have loved to have learned more about Reno, Singh, Rude. We even got some cameos by Cloud, Zack, Sephiroth, and Tifa Lockhart. It's a bit of a shame that it didn't come over. It was a 2D lateral RPG, very much like the original Final Fantasies, but it used Tetsuya Nomura's graphical style, and it was very clearly meant to be in the world of Final Fantasy VII. The music was rather unimaginative due to not being Nobuo Uematsu behind it, though we did get some reused tracks. Overall, it's a bit sad that we don't get to see it because it does give a lot of character depth to some very minor characters who appear later in the compilation, but it's not worth importing a smartphone from Japan and learning Japanese just to play it. If it ever comes out translated or on an emulator, I'd say pick it up. It looks pretty cool. Now, moving on, let's talk about the big one, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. This was the thing that many Final Fantasy fans were salivating over. A Final Fantasy movie that was not Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. Oh god. We'll talk about that soon. Anyway, this movie was a direct sequel to Final Fantasy VII. Set 2 years after, the story is that Cloud is a delivery man, and he's kind of adopted a son. He and Tifa live together, though they aren't exactly a happy family. This was something I didn't like about the movie, was there's a great tone shift to making everyone a little angsty. Angsty mixed angsterton. Cloud Strife had gotten over a lot of his issues in Final Fantasy VII, and here they are cropping up again. And I admit, the script and the story are not the best. We have 3 more Genova clones, clones of Sephiroth, who appear. They try to take over the world. Cloud and the others come together to stop it. Sephiroth makes one last appearance. We get a lot of fan service, and the movie ends. Everyone has a happily ever after. This isn't a bad movie by any means. Final Fantasy fans got what they want. It was a 3D CGI movie, and it was not trying to be real at all. We had characters leaping like 30 feet into the air, doing, limit break attacks. At one point, one of the villains summons Bahamut and has him start tearing up a city, and you're just thinking while you're watching it, this is so amazing! And we get some more of Nobuo Uematsu's music, along with the infamous One-Winged Angel track. It's really good. Perhaps the most surprising, though, are not only how good the 3D reinterpretations of Cloud and the others are, but also the voice actors. We got some really great cast here, including Stephen Bloom as Vincent, probably the most famous of them. But we got some other great characters, Cloud Strife, Sephiroth, Tifa Lockhart. They all stand out. But I have to say, we also got some odd choices. For example, Kate Sith, who was in the original Final Fantasy as both a joke character and a spy for someone else, is Irish. The hell? Still, a great little movie. It covers some interesting ideas about what happens after the story ends, what happens after you beat the big bad. And it does have a few interesting twists and a few gut-wrenching moments. Mostly, though, it's the high-action thriller that we really love watching because we get to see Final Fantasy characters doing Final Fantasy stuff. Cloud has a new motorcycle and a new sword, and he knows how to use them. It's a whole lot of fun. Give it a watch. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children complete. Remaster of the original movie. They add some more blood and a few more scenes with Denzel and the others. I say the others because most of the scenes are Cloud's adopted son, Denzel, who is very sick, and who's trying to avoid monsters. If you own the original, don't bother with it. If you don't, it's worth it. Final Fantasy VII Last Order. This is a retelling of the Nibelheim incident from the original Final Fantasy, but in animated form. It was never released in America, at least translated, but it's an incredibly fun watch. It shows beautiful animation, and we get to see in heart-wrenching detail the potential of the world of Final Fantasy VII without all the blocky graphics. I would say it's worth a watch. If not on YouTube, then on any collection you can get. Alright, Final Fantasy VII Tech Demo. This was released for the PlayStation 3. I'm covering this even though it's the latest one because there's not much to it. We get to see what Final Fantasy VII would look like on the PS3, and we get teased with the fact that Final Fantasy VII is never going to be remade. Knock on wood. Watch it get remade after I post this video. Anyway, those are the big ones. We have 2 more games left, and they are kind of important, so I'll spend a little bit more time on that. First is Dirge of Cerberus, a PS2 third-person shooter. You're thinking, Final Fantasy VII is a third-person shooter? The hell? It's actually pretty good. A lot of people complain about it being clunky, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, but it's a fun little third-person shooter. We get Vincent Valentine, who didn't get a lot of character development in the original Final Fantasy VII, returning as the main character. A lot of his backstory is revealed, showing some of the script that would have been in Final Fantasy VII if it hadn't been cut out. We get some new characters introduced, and returning favorites, Cloud, Strife, and all the others. The focus is on Vincent, though, and I have to say they do a good job of making you feel like Vincent Valentine. Stephen Bloom is great as a voice actor. All the voice cast from the movies returns. We get some interesting villains who are color-based and very dangerous. One of them turns into a behemoth. One of them wields a lot of swords. The designs are very unique, but also at times stupid. Tetsuya Nomura's artwork goes from garish Japanese fashion to fan-servicey boob shots to why is that supervillain wearing bondage gear? Yeah, the designs are at times very weird. That aside, though, we get to revisit a lot of original Final Fantasy VII locations in full 3D and play through them as Vincent, and I have to say, it's a lot of fun. The gunplay is a little clunky, it's not as smooth as it needs to be, and it's a little slower. But Vincent has melee attacks, he can turn into his limit break monsters from the game, and we get a really rockin' soundtrack. No Nobuo Uematsu, but Gact, the main band behind the soundtrack, and a huge inspiration for Tetsuya Nomura, do the music, and I have to say, their rock and roll beats really work for this game, especially the final battle. By the end of the game, you feel like a colossal badass, and the rock music really helps. The story is pretty nonsensical. It's about Vincent's, his heart, basically, which is a crystallized materia left by a woman he once loved, who was supposed to be Sephiroth's mother. It's all about her past, Vincent's past, and them coming together to stop a monstrous force trying to destroy the world. It's pretty cool, but it does leave a lot to be desired. There is, like I said, it's very clunky, the story is very stupid, there's a lot of needless upgrade elements, like, okay Vincent, you know that pistol you use all the time? Well, now you can make it into a sniper rifle, or a machine gun. It's fun to play with, but it's kind of stupid in context. And some of the bosses are really not fair. They will just eat away at you unless you use item after item to heal yourself. That being said, we get the return of a very interesting villain, and unfortunately we get teasers for more story that will probably never come. And that segues almost perfectly into Crisis Core, the last Final Fantasy VII game we're talking about. At the end of Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, we saw a character named Genesis appear. He's kind of the main baddie in Crisis Core. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core takes place both before and during Final Fantasy VII. What it takes place during is the training of Zack Fair, who was a friend of Cloud Strife. He's a top-class soldier, and he's got a very complicated relationship with Cloud, let's just say that. A bunch of new characters are added, and we get a lot of character development around Eris Gainsborough, Zack Fair, the Shinra organization, the Turks, and we get to see Cloud and Tifa, well, in full 3D, animated well, voiced well. The world that this game shows us is beautiful. It's a pity the battle system is so crap. It's basically an action RPG slash 'em up, where you just go and you attack, and a roulette wheel spins on the bottom of the screen, and if it lines up, you do a super attack, and it's incredibly grindy, boring, and stupid at times. The story, for what it's worth, is interesting, if at times dumb. There's a lot more Sephiroth clones and a lot more "are you kidding me" plot reveal moments where your best friend turns out to be a monster, or maybe he's not a monster, I'm not sure. Maybe your friend who you thought was your friend is going to be quoting out of this poem that is somehow important to the plot but no one cares about, even in today's fandom. There's a lot of stupid story moments, I'm going to say that. What I love Crisis Core for, though, are the character moments, because the characters are really good. We get to see Sephiroth before he goes pants on head crazy, and you understand why people respected him. He was a great guy. He was cool. He was calm and collected, but he was also very much, he would treat you like a friend and an ally, and he respected people. And we got to see more of Cloud, his insecurities, before he managed to have a little accident. And we got to see, well, we got to see some really amazing battles. One thing I will say, the ending is one of the most heartbreaking and yet incredibly intelligent ways of ending a game ever. I'm going to give a little bit of spoiler here, so fair warning. Spoilers! Okay, so, like I said, there's a roulette system in the battle. The roulette system is composed of memories that the character Zack Fair has gained throughout his travels. Every so often in the game, he gets new, well, let's say limit breaks, because he is, he's making new memories with friends. As he's dying, he's slowly losing the ability to make these limit breaks, doing one last attack and then losing them. This very much shows his weakening spirit and the death at the very end, where he entrusts everything to Cloud. It's really poignant and moving, and I was just amazed. I hated slogging through Crisis Core, but that ending made it almost all worthwhile. The other thing which made it worthwhile were the characters, like I was saying. Music is a mixed bag. We get some of Nobuo Uematsu's tunes returning, but we also get some new music, which is very boring. There are some mission quests, but they're really not worth it. The game is very grindy and very slow, and it lacks a lot of the charm of the original Final Fantasy. We get some of the charm of Dirge of Cerberus, where you're going through a 3D version of the Final Fantasy world, like Wu Tai, the Asian equivalent in Final Fantasy VII, and Nibelheim, but it's not as fun. I don't know how any other way to put it. The battle system is very clunky and very unintuitive. That really kills the game for me. Anyway, those are the compilations of Final Fantasy VII. It was probably the most successful Final Fantasy besides the online Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy XI and XIV. It's beloved by the fans. Even the fans who don't like it admit that it was a landmark RPG, and it was quite something for the time. I fully understand why they gave it sequels, even if Square Enix is just trying to milk off of it, but I'm still waiting for the day when Final Fantasy VII gets a full remake. Until then, it's been ported to almost every system under the sun. In the meantime, though, let's not worry about remakes. Let's talk Final Fantasy VIII, the game which almost broke the series. But is it really as bad as people say? The answer is no. It's not bad. It's really fun. Oh, don't get me wrong, it's also really stupid, but it's very fun. Next time, we're talking Final Fantasy VIII. Oh man, I am going to get letters from this one. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.